Let me give you one number before we do anything else. 500,000. That's how many Optimus robots Tesla plans to have working. And the moment that happens, it's not just a machine story. It's the same as adding 1.5 million new workers into the American economy overnight. Robots don't sleep, they don't take breaks, they don't unionize. So one robot does the work of 3 people. And here's the number that should really stop you. Running one of these robots costs about $5.70 an hour. Think about what minimum wage looks like right now. This single number is aimed directly at the paychecks of millions of immigrant and low-income workers across the country. And this isn't just a story about Tesla selling robots. This is a story about American politics, immigration policy, and where capital is going to flow for the next 10 years. And make no mistake, this isn't some future headline you get to scroll past. This is happening in warehouses, in factories, in delivery hubs right now while you're watching this video. And the workers standing in that path have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's break down that money trail piece by piece. So why does this video matter? It's simple. If you invest without understanding this robotic shift, you're putting your money into an industry that could be obsolete in 10 years. But if you understand it now, you're positioning yourself at the front of the wave that's about to define the American economy. My name is Moon. I obsess over one question. Where does money come from, and where does it go next? If you're worried that a robot might take your job, or if you're frustrated because you don't know how to invest in this shift, this video is going to give you real answers. Hit subscribe, and if this helps, drop a like. That's what keeps this channel going. Now let's get into it. When people hear robots are taking jobs, they usually picture an old factory arm swinging back and forth. And honestly, most people think, hasn't that been happening for 20 years already? But here's the thing. Optimus is completely different from that. Old industrial robots stayed in one spot doing one repetitive motion. Optimus walks, grabs objects, and can do almost any task a human can do with their hands. That means industries robots could never touch before, retail, logistics, even household labor, are now on the table. And this is where it actually gets interesting. Let's run the real math here. The average low-wage worker in America earns somewhere around $15 to $17 an hour. Optimus runs at $5.70 an hour. And because it can work 24 hours a day instead of 8, one robot effectively replaces 3 people. Now, do the math like a company would. 3 human workers cost roughly $360 to $400 a day in wages. One Optimus unit running around the clock costs about $137. Do you think a company is going to ignore that gap? They won't. Capital has no emotions. It flows toward whatever is cheaper and can work longer every single time. Now stretch that math out over a year. 3 human workers cost a company somewhere around $130,000 annually in wages alone. Before benefits, before insurance, before turnover costs. One Optimus unit, running non-stop, costs roughly $50,000 a year to operate. That's not a small efficiency gain. That's an $80,000 a year decision, multiplied across every single role a robot can fill. Multiply that across a workforce of thousands, and you're not looking at a corporate cost-cutting memo anymore. You're looking at the biggest labor arbitrage in modern history. So here's how the money actually moves. The dollars that used to land in a low-wage worker's pocket are now flowing somewhere else. Into the companies building the robots, the companies supplying the parts inside them, and the shareholders who own those stocks. Money is shifting from labor to capital. But here's what most people completely miss. This isn't just an economic story. For decades, America's low-wage labor market was filled by immigrant workers. Now that robots can fill those same roles at $5.70 an hour, the economic case for that immigrant labor starts to weaken. That's part of why the current administration has taken such an aggressive stance on immigration. It's not just political messaging. Some analysts see it as a preemptive response to this exact labor shift. As robots become ready to absorb low-wage work, political tolerance for immigrant labor drops right alongside it. Do you think that's a coincidence? Capital and politics almost always move together. And when low-income and immigrant workers lose their jobs and have nowhere to go, does that stay a clean economic statistic? No, it turns into social unrest, rising crime, and political conflict. Which means this isn't just an investment story, it's a social risk story too. Now, here's something people get confused about. You might think, surely a company would still choose a human for the human element. But honestly, corporate decisions aren't made with emotion. They're made in quarterly earnings reports. Put yourself in a CFO's seat. Labor costs are unpredictable. Union negotiations, sick days, turnover, hiring costs, all of it is a variable. A robot, on the other hand, shows up as depreciation. Predictable, controllable. And the one thing companies hate more than anything is uncertainty. Robots remove that uncertainty. That's the real psychological reason companies are choosing robots, not just because they're cheap, but because they're predictable. Now you might be thinking, Optimus isn't even in mass production yet. Isn't this getting ahead of ourselves? Fair point. No, 500,000 units aren't deployed today, but investing was never about what's happening right now. It's about betting on what happens next. Stock prices always move ahead of reality. By the time 1 million Optimus units are actually working the floor of a warehouse, the stocks tied to this shift will likely have already moved several times over. Real money doesn't wait for certainty. It moves the moment the structure becomes visible. So where does the money actually go? First, the company's building the robot itself. Second, the supply chain behind it, the actuators, sensors, and battery makers. Third, the major logistics, retail, and manufacturing companies actually deploying these robots on the floor. That's where the capital splits into 3 lanes. Here's an analogy for you. Think back to the early smartphone era. You could invest in the phone itself, but the companies making the chips, the displays, the batteries inside it grew just as much, sometimes more. Robots are exactly the same. Don't just look at the robot itself. Look at the entire ecosystem of parts feeding into it. That's where the real opportunity hides. But here's where it gets even bigger. This isn't just a Tesla success story. Whichever country secures robotic labor first captures manufacturing productivity dominance. The era where labor costs determined national competitiveness is ending, and the era where robot fleet size determines national competitiveness is beginning. That's exactly why the United States is racing so aggressively to lock down AI infrastructure and robotic manufacturing. This isn't just about corporate earnings anymore. It's a survival game at the national level. And here's the part that should really sit with you. Now, every previous industrial shift took decades to unfold. Steam power, electricity, the assembly line. This one is being deployed at software speed, which means the winners and the losers in this transition won't be decided over a generation. They'll be decided within the next few years. If you're not paying attention right now, you won't get a second chance to catch the early wave. So let's bring it together. Robots are replacing 3 workers at a time, running at $5.70 an hour. And that money is shifting from labor into capital. This shift is tangled up with immigration policy, social tension, and even national power. The person who understands this structure today and the person who just says, "cool robot," and moves on, are going to end up in completely different financial positions 5 years from now. This is the kind of shift that only comes around once or twice in a lifetime, the kind that quietly separates the people who saw it coming from the people who didn't. 5 years from now, nobody is going to remember who ignored this video, but you will remember whether you acted on it. The world isn't going to slow down and wait for you to catch up. Whether you get ahead of this shift now or get pushed aside by it later, that decision starts today. If this helped, hit subscribe and drop a like. Protect and grow what you've built.